is episode 3, and I wanted to start off sharing a bit of my personal experience. Although my experience in the multilateral space started off a bit shaky, which is why I wanted to do this masterclass, to hopefully give you the tools and insights that you need to engage in this space and look beyond the pompous venues, papers, pictures that you might have already seen. This episode in particular will be very heavy as we dive deeper into the complexities of this space. In 2019, the COP, Conference for the Environment, was due to take place in Chile, but because of some local issues, it had to be moved to Spain. I saw that as an opportunity to ask my government if I could go to join the official Peruvian team on the way to COP. I was in the country just next door in France, and after a 15-hour bus ride, which was not as much as Greta Thunberg's 3-week voyage on a yacht, I made it to Madrid. I had received a position paper from my Ministry of Environment on what the country's position was on different issues, and I was told I would be asked to support the negotiations following the topic of deforestation. I stayed at a friend's house an hour away from the venue to stay within my young student's budget, and I got ready to engage in an overwhelming space of negotiations, side events, demonstrations, booths, and a sea of people that were there with a common goal, but different agendas. The fact that I'm here today, 4 years later, is proof that that moment didn't scar me enough to make me turn away. I took part in meetings, took notes for the lead negotiator on deforestation, met amazing people taking action all over the world, and reconnected with mentors, and I felt like I was doing something for my country and also for the planet, no matter how lost I was in the journey. A few years previously, I had also been part of COI, the Conference of Youth in Paris, just before the Paris Agreement. And although my main role there was to be an interpreter, and incidentally I discovered in doing that I wasn't yet trained to do that kind of job, even though I spoke many languages, I also was able to be part of the Youth Declaration that called countries to action, and I saw many different young people taking action on stage and beyond the stage. Even Melati and Isabel, who you may have seen on other masterclasses, the founders of Bye Bye Plastic Bags, went on stage in dresses made of reused material. And I got to understand that our voices as young changemakers can really generate change. So although my initial engagement with the multilateral space was in the climate space, there are many other spaces that may interest you. What kind of different multilateral mechanisms are out there? I will talk about just 3 of them: organizations, conferences, and instruments, with a focus on conferences which are easier to get involved in. But let's start with number 1, multilateral organizations. Some of them, such as World Food Programme, UN Women, World Health Organization, and so on, exist to support countries on topical expertise, keeping their niche focus at the top of the agenda and showing how it interconnects with other people's priorities. Others, like the World Bank or the Inter-American Development Bank, are sources of funding and knowledge for developing countries. They partner with countries and the private sector to provide financing, policy advice, and technical assistance to governments of developing countries. Other types of multilateral organizations, like the World Trade Organization or the Hague, help create rules between countries and solve problems they may have in interacting with each other. So we went through multilateral organizations. Now, multilateral conferences, and there are many of them: HLPF, ECOSOC, LDC5, SDG Summit, just to name a few. But hold on, that is something that happens often in the multilateral space. People start talking in acronyms and with a series of letters that it's hard to understand. So let's start again. HLPF, the High Level Political Forum. It's the central United Nations platform for the follow-up and review of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Sustainable Development Goals, which we spoke about from the introduction. At the global level, it takes place annually in July at the UN headquarters in New York. Each year, countries are invited to submit VNRs, voluntary national reviews, where they lay out their own implementation of the 20 Agenda to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. My country, Peru, has submitted VNRs in 2017 and 2020, and any citizen from any country can find the review of their country on the HLPF website. Countries that haven't yet conducted and presented a VNR since the process began in 2016 include Haiti, Myanmar, South Sudan, the US, and Yemen. This year, in 2023, 41 countries have said that they will present theirs. Just a few weeks ago, I was speaking to the ECOSOC president, Lachazara Stoeva, and she said that an important thing that young people can do is present a shadow VNR report to get engaged. Many countries will sugarcoat how much progress they actually have made. So to support, you can either register voluntary commitments yourself and bring global database to stakeholders taking action via the website on the screen, or you can also rally your friends and organizations in your country to present a shadow VNR, telling your country's story through the lens of citizens in your own voice. In the documents for this lesson, you will find a few tools that you can use to get you started. You can also encourage your country to submit an updated VNR, even if they already did one, through petition sites, letters, or direct contact with your government. I mentioned the president of ECOSOC recently, but what is ECOSOC? The Economic and Social Council is one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations system, established by the UN Charter in 1945. It consists of 54 members of the United Nations elected by the General Assembly. What you can do to engage in this space is register your organization under the consultative status for ECOSOC. Consultative status is a formal relationship between non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and the United Nations to allow NGOs to participate in the work of the UN. ECOSOC is the only main entry point to the UN system for NGOs, with a formal framework for NGO participation. In 1946, there were only 41 NGOs who were granted consultative status by ECOSOC, and now there are thousands. By registering, you'd be able to attend official meetings, submit written statements prior to sessions, make oral engagements, meet official government delegations, UN officers and other NGO representatives, organize and attend parallel events that take place during the session, participate in debates, interactive dialogues, and panel discussions. You see, you can do a lot. So, to participate in ECOSOC, another thing we can do as young people is also participate in the ECOSOC Youth Forum. It takes place ahead of the official ECOSOC processes like HLPF and provides a platform for young people to engage in a dialogue with member states and other actors to voice their views. We can also share our concerns and galvanize actions on how to transform the world into a fairer, greener, and more sustainable place, guided by the Sustainable Development Goals, you guessed it. Although it's far from being a perfect mechanism, this year, together with many other young people and UN agencies, there is concerted effort to make sure young people can take part both online and in person. I have spoken about many moments that happen every year, HLPF, ECOSOC Youth Forum, COP, but there are others that happen less frequently. For instance, LDC5, which I'd not even heard about before being invited to attend, because it happens every 10 years. So it was seen as a once-in-a-decade opportunity to accelerate sustainable development in the places where international assistance is needed the most, and to tap into the full potential of least developed countries, helping them make progress on the road to prosperity. The LDC5 included a series of youth delegates that proposed a declaration from the countries to implement recommendations in their discussions and implementation. The SDG Summit is a bit more regular, but still not yearly. It's been mandated to take place every 4 years. So this will be a second one taking place in September this year, 2023. You can also join the Engine Room, where we're developing youth-led ideas to tackle our most pressing issues, so we can showcase them at the SDG Summit, showing young people's leadership that world leaders should follow. So I've spoken about multilateral organizations and multilateral conferences. There are also multilateral instruments. For instance, BEPSMLI, Multilateral Convention to implement tax treaty-related measures to prevent base erosion and profit shifting, which is a long thing to say. It enables governments to implement agreed minimum standards to counter treaty abuse and to improve dispute resolution mechanisms while providing flexibility to accommodate specific tax treaty policies. I must admit that this one I struggled with a little bit because it relates to organizations and conferences as well. So, after this hefty explanation, which doesn't include everything, where do you want to get involved? In which of these multilateral organizations, conferences, or instruments do you want to get engaged? As I mentioned when I started, it can be overwhelming, so you can take a break before the next episode. I have been there. But in the next episode, we're going to share some key skills and things that have helped me in navigating this space. So see you there. Bye!